Hi everyone, welcome to this live. Today it's been a little while between lives, but I always love jumping on when I've got something on my heart and something that I really want to talk about. So I'm going to be diving in today into a conversation about boundaries, about honoring yourself, and about overcoming patterns of people pleasing, and those patterns of people pleasing that cause us to put other people before ourselves and not be able to implement boundaries. Now, I actually was just on this live and had almost finished recording it, and then my phone overheated and froze and went into emergency mode. So I lost the live that I just done, but this conversation is so important and is something that I'm so passionate about talking about today that I decided to jump back on now that my phone has cooled down and give it another go. So if you were on the live that I was just doing, some of this may be repeating, but there's just a really important message that wants to come through that I want to dive into. And this is an important conversation for me to be having today, and also one for a lot of the women out there who I know really struggle with boundaries, because I had some big stuff come up for me today. I had a lot of emotion come up this morning. I had some triggers go off around my own lack of boundaries and some strong kind of anger that came up around that. And I actually have had over the past week 3 situations that I've manifested where there's been, I felt my boundaries haven't been honored, where I have felt my time and energy hasn't been honored. And so because this is coming up such a strong issue for me, I felt that I really wanted to dive in today and talk about it. Those of you who are joining me now who maybe saw that I was just on a live, my phone overheated and froze. So I've decided to come back on because a lot of the people who were on that live were saying how much it was landing. So I wanted to come back on and do it again to make sure this message could come through, and so that I could save it as an IGTV, because I actually lost that live that I was just doing due to my phone overheating. So when we continue to manifest the same pattern, the same situation getting activated over and over again, it is life saying, take a look. It is life saying, there's a lesson in here for you. It is life saying you have some inner work to do. And the thing with that I often struggle with boundaries is I find it really easy to justify why it's okay to just to not have the boundaries, to just tolerate stuff that doesn't feel that good, to not really honor my time and energy. And I've been pushing stuff under the rug for a long time, justifying why, it's fine, I'll be flexible, I'll be easygoing, I'll be accommodating, right? Which is what we so often do. And then today I snapped. I had something happen today and I was like, that's it. I am at my wit's end. And I really had to sit with myself and be like, Connie, this is coming up repeatedly for you and you're being asked to look at it. So I'm being asked at the moment to look at my relationship to my own boundaries in my work and in my business. This comes up in relationships a lot. And I'm really being asked to look at self-honoring, really seeing my value, valuing myself, my energy, and my time. And the way that we honor that is through our boundaries, through what we say yes and no to, through what we say to people. This is what's okay for me. This is what's not. This is what I'm available for. This is what I'm not. This is how we do things here. And the first point that I want to bring up, because it is our responsibility to set that. It's our responsibility to first get clear in ourselves. What are those boundaries for us? What are those things that I'm okay with and I'm not okay with, that I will show up for and say yes to, and the things that I will say no to, the things in a relationship that I'll compromise on, and the things that are non-negotiable for me. And this is a big journey of tuning in to listen to yourself. And the biggest issue we're having is we're not taking the time to really listen to what our inner voice is saying to how things are feeling, to the impact things are having on us. A lot of us as women are so used to taking on so much. So we just keep saying yes. And we just keep saying, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's fine, I'll do it, I'll be accommodating. And we're not listening to our body when our body is saying, no, too much. I can't handle this anymore. This is sacrificing my well-being. This is impacting my health. This is impacting my time, my ability to give time to the things that are important for me. Okay? So it actually takes the willingness to tune in and listen to how things are feeling in your body to you and what your inner guidance is saying, and what, when you were if you were to really put yourself first, what you're needing and what you're wanting in a situation. And I'm going to talk in a moment about the tendency to people please and how we kind of put other people before our own needs. I've got a couple of questions coming through and I'll touch on them in a moment. I just want to get into my flow and then I'll check in on the comments. So one of the first things I recognize today that is an issue that I'm having with boundaries, and that many of us struggle with, is that our boundaries are unspoken. We're not actually communicating them. They are sitting within us as unspoken expectations around how we think other people should show up in our lives, how we think other people should treat us, what we think are normal work hours, in our job, what tasks we think we should and shouldn't be doing, what it isn't okay for our partner to be doing in the relationship. But they're being held as unspoken expectations rather than as clear boundaries that we're communicating and letting people know how to treat us. Because we teach people how to treat us. It's one of my points for later on, but I'm going to drop it in now. We teach people how to treat us by what we say yes and no to, by what we're available for, by what we give our time and energy to, by what people can and can't get away with us, or can do with us. So we're holding these unspoken expectations. And this is going on in my business, and I had to have a really big wake-up call around this today. I'm like, Connie, you can't expect your clients to show up in certain ways for you and respect your time in this way, X, Y, Z, if you actually haven't clarified, this is what it would look like for you to respect my time, or this is how we do things in our dynamic, or here's the procedures around how things happen, the processes. And so it's been an unconscious expectation of what it would look like to respect my time and energy. And when that gets broken, there's the resentment, there's the anger, there's the frustration that comes. And this was really demonstrated by, I was watching MAFS, Married at First Sight, and they had a couple up on the couch, and the guy was really upset because his partner had shared some private conversations publicly with the group. And in his mind, those conversations were private, shouldn't have been shared, and were therefore a breach of his trust. Whereas to her, she was like, well, if these are important, then they should be shared with everyone. And the experts sat with the couple and they said, have you guys spoken about boundaries? Have you spoken about what your boundaries are in the relationship? And they kind of looked at each other and they were like, no, we haven't. And the reason that the guy had got upset was because he was holding an unspoken expectation around what she should do in order to build trust with him and in order to respect him. But he hadn't communicated it, and therefore she broke it. She broke his boundary because she didn't know it existed. So much of this, and this is why it can be really difficult for us as women sometimes, it requires us to speak up. It requires us to use our voice to stand up for ourselves, to have courageous conversations where we say no, where we say this doesn't feel okay to me, where we say sorry, I'm not available for that, where we say here's a process or a standard around how things are done here, around what does and doesn't honor me in a relationship in terms of how someone acts or shows up with you, right? And so unless we're willing to have those conversations and put those things in place, we can't expect that our boundaries are going to be honored. So it's our responsibility to have first the conversation with ourselves, to get clear on that, to listen into our body around what feels good to us and what doesn't, and what feels right to us and what doesn't. And then to have the courage to have that conversation and set that standard to ensure that we can be treated in the way we deserve and receive what we truly desire, in our relationships, whether it's work or whether it's personal. Let me go to the comments and then I will come back to what my next point. Beautiful, such good timing. This comes up for me with friends. When you know something is such a strong no for you, how do you overcome all the heaviness and even the desire to do it and actually say no? Yeah, let's talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Thought there was another one there. Beautiful. Okay, so I just want to quickly go into the things that are stopping us so often being able to implement the boundaries that we want to. And there's a few things. First of all, it really requires us to love ourselves. To love ourselves so deeply that we really respect our time and our energy. We respect ourselves enough that we will put ourselves first. Because the reason so often that we're not implementing boundaries is because we're putting other people's feelings before our own. It's people pleasing. We're thinking, I don't want to be an inconvenience. I don't want to be difficult. If I say no, it's going to burden them. If I say no, they might get upset. They might be disappointed. You know what? They might like me less. They might pull away. If I say no, my boss may not be happy with me. If I speak up, my partner might have a reaction and pull away from me. And this was what was going on for me. And I want you to feel into yourself what stops you putting in place the boundaries that you want, that really honor you. I didn't want to inconvenience my clients. I didn't want to be difficult. I wanted to be good. I wanted to be nice. And so many women that I work with are beautiful, big-hearted, caring, empathic, generous, giving women. And we just want to keep giving. We just want to make everyone happy. We just want to ensure everyone else's needs are met. But in the process, we're denying our own needs. And in the process, we're putting someone else's happiness before our own. And in the process, when we're not wanting to burden them, we're saying, okay, I'm going to take that burden, I'm going to put it on my shoulders. And I'm going to carry it so that you don't have to carry it. Yeah? And it takes a massive, massive toll on us. And so that's what I recognized. The reason I was hesitating putting in boundaries was because I didn't want to be difficult. And I didn't want to have a negative impact on my clients and have them have a difficulty. So I'll be misaccommodating. I'll be super easy, I'll be super flexible. I'll be like, yes, I'm the yes girl. Yeah, sure, we can do that, no problems, right? But the only person who suffers is me. And so back to that question, how do we, beautiful, someone said here, this majorly happened to me today and I gave into saying yes, trying to forgive myself. And the self-forgiveness piece is so important because we all do it. And that was, I'm going to talk about anger in a minute, but that was what I felt today. I felt so much anger at myself for all the times I continued to deny and diminish myself and my needs in order to make people happy, in order to not ruffle feathers, in order to not be difficult or create an inconvenience. And then all that anger that festers ends up getting directed at us as self-loathing and self-judgment. So the self-forgiveness piece is huge because we've all done it and we all do it. But forgiving ourselves when we notice that we've done that. And so the question was around how do you overcome the heaviness and even the desire to do it and actually say no? It kind of goes back to what I said at the start, was actually the willingness to feel and sit with yourself. So that the tendency I see, particularly with like saying yes and no to things, is when we're like working, and let's talk about a work context, although this happens with friendships, we do it there too. If we're just in our day doing things, we're just making really quick decisions. And very often we're not pausing to actually ask, how does this feel? How does this feel to me? How does this feel in my body? What do I want to do? If I sit with saying yes, how does this feel? And if I sit with saying no, how does this feel? So first of all, actually asking yourself what you want to do and what feels good and right to you before you say yes and no. But at some point, there's also got to be the willingness to be uncomfortable. Because what's stopping us a lot of the time is we don't want to sit with the discomfort of guilt that comes, or the discomfort of fearing that we've upset someone, or the discomfort or the heaviness of the repercussions of it, right? But we have to be willing to face the discomfort that might arise from putting ourselves first, particularly if it goes against everything we know is the right thing to do. If you've been taught and modeled, and I was modeled by my mum, I've never seen my mum put in a boundary. Everything was about putting other people first, making other people happy, sacrificing herself for other people. So it's what you've learned. And going against that is going to feel uncomfortable. So we've got to be willing to sit in the discomfort of that and say, and also actually, this is why I'm bringing up the people pleasing, is witness what it is that's stopping you being able to honor yourself. What is that belief? What is that story? I think mine, if I'm just sitting with it, I think there's a fear around having people pull away from me. Like losing love, probably, if I'm difficult in some way. That's probably, something that goes on for a lot of people. And rather than just letting that belief run your life, you need to examine that belief and say, okay, I have this story about myself. This is stopping me being able to prioritize myself and put myself first. I need to look at this. I need to look at this belief system. Where did I pick that up from? Who did I model that from? And breaking out of the pattern is going to feel uncomfortable because it's foreign. Thank you, Erica. Beautiful to see you here again because I saw you on my last live. Yeah, mine is loss or rejection. So we have to have the courage to sit in the discomfort of that fear and breathe into it. But here's the thing. Say we fear something like rejection. In choosing to make someone else happy, you're actually rejecting yourself in this situation. So you're still experiencing a rejection. It's just a rejection of self rather than a rejection from someone else. Classic me, self-abandonment, which so many women do. We abandon our own desires and needs to be the rescuer for someone else. So there's always a pain associated with it. It's either the pain that you have to sit within yourself of knowing that you're completely denying yourself, or the pain you have to sit with of disappointing someone else. And the reason I'm talking about this now is because I just had the massive wake-up call about it today when I got so triggered and there was so much anger and so much heartbreak towards myself that I have been denying myself for so long, that I keep putting everyone before me, right? And sometimes we need to have those breaking point moments that snap us out of it. Yeah, it totally is a self-rejection. It is. And so, and sometimes there's some self-love work that needs to happen there, where you actually need to begin to see and value yourself enough that you believe you're worthy of being put first. You deserve to be the priority. You deserve to have your needs met. You deserve to have your time honored. You might actually need to do some self-love work around that to up the ante on how you see and feel about yourself. So I want to move on to anger, because this is what happens, anger and resentment. This is what happens when we are not honoring ourselves and our boundaries. It festers within us. And it starts small, and we sweep it under the rug and we justify it's not a big deal. I'm fine. I can handle it. Don't worry about it. And then we snap. And we either build so much resentment that we just want to become ice cold to someone and pull away and be like, dead to me, not interested. Or we end up having to quit our job because we just can't handle the workload. Or we end up in hospital because we're so burdened by how much we're trying to do. Or we have an explosive burst of anger because we are so frustrated with all the built up resentment that is coming from constantly denying our own needs and our own desires. And it can damage relationships. You can end up having explosive outbursts in your relationships that are just this build-up of festering energy. And like I said, I had a big anger outburst today. And anger for women, I just want you to know, is such an important emotion. So many women struggle to feel and honor their anger. They see it as wrong. They see it as out of control. I shouldn't be angry. I should be sweet and nice and polite. Your anger is so powerful for you as a woman. Now, this isn't about throwing it onto people, but it's 100% around honoring it. Because if your fierce anger and rage comes up, that is your body and your inner guidance saying to you, something's not right here. I'm not being honored. I'm not being respected. There's a pain here. And anger is like a power emotion. So anger will actually help catapult you back into your power. So when it's there, feel it, honor it, and get really honest. What am I angry about? So today I moved through a big yoga flow. I cried, I screamed, I hit pillows, and I processed all that anger that was coming from denying myself and all the anger I had at myself for keeping myself so small, by not honoring me. So your anger is important to pay attention to. Your anger is a sign. And if it comes up, do your best to not throw it onto people, but find healthy ways to process it and listen to it. And that's why I've come on here today feeling so strong, because I transmuted that anger into power and into you know what? I'm fucking done. You know what? The standard's going to change. So you can turn that energy into a powerful inner decision that creates change if you listen to it and if you honor it. But if you keep pushing it down and saying, I shouldn't be feeling this, I feel guilty that I'm even feeling this, I shouldn't be making anyone else wrong, you're never going to be able to move through it. Beautiful. You're right. I think it's really important to express our feelings, but in a healthy way, because if we locked our feelings inside our body, it causes illness. Absolutely. And your emotions are messengers for you, beautiful women. Again, a lot of us have been taught, don't feel the fullness of your emotion. You're crazy, you're losing it, you're overreacting, whatever it is. Listen to what's there. It's your body trying to get your attention and trying to tell you that something's not feeling right, and it wants you to act on it. So the final couple of points here is that it is your inner masculine that comes in, that you bring in to help you implement boundaries. So if you're working with your inner feminine and masculine energies, which are energies we all have within us, and I'm talking about this because I'm talking to the women, right? Your feminine energy, my darlings, is such a gift. It is a precious, beautiful gift for people to come into contact with you, to be around you, to receive your generosity, to receive your nurturing energy, to receive your big heart. You're a gift, okay? And because so many women care so deeply, we just want to give, and we just want to give, and we just want to give. And, we want to keep everyone else happy. And so if you're only operating from that feminine giver, nurturer, loving energy, you're going to end up overgiving, and you're going to end up radically depleting that energy. So we need to bring in our inner masculine as well to actually protect and honor the feminine. And your inner masculine is the clarity, the decisiveness, the willingness to put in the boundary. It's the fierceness to say, it's like the yes and no. It's like, it's the container, almost the boundary around the feminine energy to protect and honor her. And without that, your energy is just going to go everywhere. Yeah, and it's going to get leaky and it's going to get depleted. So I've been doing a lot of work this year on cultivating my inner masculine energy, a healthy expression of that, the divine conscious masculine, which is clear and grounded, and my leader, is decisive, is unemotional in making these decisions. Say yes, say no, don't do that, give your time and energy to that, not to that, just clear, because it's the feminine that brings all the emotion, like, oh, but I feel guilty and I don't know. But the inner masculine within you is a neutral energy that just cuts through that. It's just like a knife that cuts through it. So we actually need to bring in that part of ourselves to say, I love you enough that I'm going to protect your energy. And I'm going to do that through putting these boundaries in place. I totally agree with not forgetting that we are the ones who give the permission to our thoughts to let feel good or not, I would say that we are the captain of our thoughts, 100%. But a lot of the time, we're actually not running off conscious thought, we're running off unconscious programming, which is what we've just learned and picked up. We just act what we've, how we've learned to be. So we have to actually slow down enough to get conscious and intentional around how we're showing up. And I can't remember if I said this at the start or not. Maybe I did actually. As I said, we teach people how to treat us. We teach others what they can and can't get away with in our lives. We teach people what to put on our plate and what not. We teach people how they need to show up in relationship to us. And the reason it is so important for us to do that is because we also teach other people how to do it for themselves. When we are an example of self-love and self-worth and self-honoring, it is an example for other people to do the same. It inspires them to do the same. It shows them, oh, this is what self-respect looks like. Oh, this is what self-honoring looks like. Dang, maybe I need to look at that in my own life. Yeah, they might have a reaction first because they're like, this person used to always say yes to me. Why are they saying no? This person used to always be really accommodating. Why are they being so difficult? And if they have a reaction, that's their stuff. It's not your responsibility. But in time, you're actually modeling self-respect, self-worth, self-love. And the most important thing that I recognize from all of this is that the very situations that have manifested with the people who I felt have not been honoring my boundaries and my time and my energy, the whole reason it's happening is because they're not able to manage their own boundaries and their own time and energy. And what's going on in their life is having a knock-on effect and then impacting me. So I am doing them a disservice by not showing up and holding a standard of showing how we teach others to treat us. We set a standard for what we want to receive and what we allow into our lives. So it's my responsibility to show up and be an example of that. And the more that I embody that, the less available I am for what's out of alignment with that, and the more that I inspire other people to do the same. So there's big, I'm really wanting to show up in a space of being quite real and raw and honest today. Not saying I'm someone that's mastered boundaries, but saying I've had some big lessons come up around this and I'm willing to do the work around it and I'm willing to face it. And I want to be an example for all of you who struggle with this as well. There are times where I constantly worry how I come across to other people. Am I nice enough? Do they like me? As against being my authentic self. Oh, this is the people pleasing that I was speaking about. And what we've learned as women, that we need to be nice, that we need to be liked. And there's a way that we need to be in order to be liked. And it 100% blocks us being our authentic self. It 100% does. And so as I was saying before, there's actually some examining that needs to go on within us. Where did I learn that I need to be nice? Where did I learn that I have to constantly worry if people like me? Where did I learn that the most important thing is that people like me? And again, what would you prefer? And it's interesting to answer this question. Would you prefer external love or love of self? Because it's all about trying to get love. It's all about trying to get love. And so we compromise on self-love to get external love. Because that's what we're taught. Love comes from outside of me. It's all about getting people to like me and love me. That's the purpose of everything I do. And if I be my authentic self, I might love me, but will other people? I don't know. So I'd actually encourage you to do some inner child work around that, because that's usually where it comes from. It comes from what we've learned about ourselves as children, who we've learned we need to be in the world as little girls, and the judgment we've picked up around our authentic self and why we don't feel it's okay to be in the fullness of ourselves. And that's a whole other conversation. But today, this is what I wanted to share with you. So thank you, everyone. I'm so glad this is resonating with you. Thank you for your beautiful comments and your interaction. If you have any last questions, you can ask away. But I really wanted to come on and share this because I'm having a huge wake-up call about it. And look, I have my own fear when I sit with having to be a bit difficult and having to implement these boundaries that might inconvenience other people. But you have to get to a place where you choose where you say, you know what, I want to live in the fullness of who I am. I want to experience my expansion. I want to elevate my life. I want to feel a higher sense of self-worth. I want to receive more. I want to feel more in my power. And that's more important to me than anything else. So it's going to be uncomfortable. You'll probably have fear come up. I feel nervous about it. But we've got to be willing just to sit with that discomfort and then listen for our inner truth, not our learnt programming, our inner truth, and follow that above all else. Yeah? Yeah, the thing that many people understand is the meaning of self-love. Exactly. Self-love. It's not just like all sweet little self-care practices. It is fierce devotion to self above all else. Which, well, as women, we're like, that's a bit selfish. It sounds a bit self-absorbed. Are you sure I can do that? Well, we've got to get really honest around what are the repercussions if we don't. Because it's going to impact every area of your life and impact your ability to really show up the way you want and receive what you want in every area of life. And over time, it's going to diminish your self-esteem. And yeah. Okay, loves, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. I made it through this live without it cutting out. So fingers crossed, I can save it, put it on IGTV. Thank you for being here. And if you're catching the replay, leave me a comment and let me know what resonated with you from this live today. Lots of love, my friends. Talk soon.